أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Last week we started with 20th word. In my book, this is page 255.
One day, while reading these verses, 3 points were imparted to me from the effulgence of the Quran against the promptings of Satan. His suggestions took this form. He said, "You say the Quran is a miracle and of infinite eloquence, and that it is guidance for everyone at all times. So what is the meaning in its persistently repeating in historical form certain minor events like the following? How is it appropriate to mention an insignificant event like the slaughtering of a cow as though it was something significant, and even naming that important surah, the cow? Also, the event of prostrating before Adam. It occurred in the realm of the unseen and cannot be understood rationally. It may be submitted to and accepted with certainty only after a strong belief has been attained. Whereas the Quran instructs those who use their reasons, in many places it says, 'So will you not think?' and refers what it says to the reason. Also, how is it guidance to show certain natural conditions of rocks to be important, which are the results of chance?" The points with which I was inspired took this form. First point. In the Always Quran, there are numerous minor events behind which are concealed universal principles, and which are shown as the tips of general laws. For example, he taught Adam the names, all of them. This is the teaching of the names, which was a miracle of Adam before the angels, because of his ability to be God's vicegerent on earth, and was a minor event. But it forms the tip of a universal principle, which is as follows. It was a teaching due to man's comprehensive disposition of countless sciences and numerous all-embracing branches of knowledge about the universe, and extensive learning about the Creator's attributes and qualities, which afforded man superiority over not only the angels, but also the heavens and earth and mountains in the question of the bearing of the supreme trust. And like the Quran states that through his comprehensive disposition, man is God's spiritual vicegerent on earth. So the minor event in the unseen of the angels prostrating before Adam and Satan, not prostrating, is a tip of a broad and universal observed principle. These hint at an extensive truth which is as follows. Through mentioning the angels' obedience and submission before the person of Adam and Satan's pride and refusal, the Quran makes understood that most of the physical beings in the universe and their representatives and appointed beings are subjugated to man, and that man's senses are predisposed and amenable to benefiting from all of them, and pointing out what a fearsome enemy and serious obstacle in the path of man's progress are evil matter and its representatives and evil inhabitants, which corrupt a man's nature and drive him down wrong paths. The Quran of miraculous exposition, while speaking of a minor matter with Adam, peace be upon him, converses in elevated fashion with the whole universe and all mankind.
Any questions before we start with the first point? Anyone wants to remind us about the last week discussions regarding the first paragraph? Any comments, any disagreement? Nothing. Okay, Yusrael, please go on.
Assalamu alaikum. Well, just at least how I understood it from last week, to recap, is that, first and foremost, like you said, asking what is the nature of a question, and that involves asking, what is the aim of the question? Is it based on, to arrive at some sort of understanding, whether one arrives to what the true nature of things are? That's a secondary point, but is that really the goal, is to try to understand how things are? And you can determine that based off of whether the premises of the question itself is true or false? Does it already have some sort of predisposed, bias there in terms of it's already trying to get you to an answer? So in the case of the questions that are presented, as we said, by Satan himself, he's already trying to, he already has a intent in mind of what the answer should be, saying that, these, of what benefit, of what significance are these things, these mentionings in the Quran as it pertains to Adam, the prostration before Adam, or the cow, the slaughtering of the cow. And in and of itself, in a sense, he quotes the verse, and when we told the angels prostrate before Adam, they prostrated except Satan. The question itself is kind of demonstrating that Satan doesn't bow before man, because even in his questions that he asks man, there is no intention to arrive to some sort of understanding of what could things mean. He already puts it that these things are insignificant. That's the premise of his question. And that's in a sense how Satan doesn't bow before man. So, really we should be, asking ourselves, while it's important to have questions, what is the origination of those questions? And, are they for good reason to have those questions, or are they just a means to eventually deny reality, which is what it appears the initial intention of these questions are.
Thank you. And as far as I remember, since Faraz is not here, so he raised another good point that, regardless of the intent of the question, regardless of why a question is posed, there's another aspect, which is if we take the question as a challenge, like in this case, for instance, the Satan asking to author what is the wisdom in Quran, referring to these historical events or particular events. So even though the author knows that these questions are not asked to learn something about the Quran, but to challenge Quran, he still sees this as an opportunity to improve himself. So maybe the one reason that we take it as a challenge, because we also have some doubts, which is reflected through these questions, or maybe we have ourselves as an insecurity in the topic, or we don't have a firm conviction yet. So these questions also serves as for this purpose as well. When author takes it as such, says, okay, since these questions are there, since I, my mind, they are in my mind, whether they are whispers from Satan or not, let me see if I can answer them. Let me see if I have any answer to them. If not, maybe it will lead us to let's say a struggle or to a journey through which we will learn, we will get some answers to these questions. So from these aspects, such questions, I guess, serves another purpose for us. So regardless of the intent of the person asking, or even regardless of the intent that we pose these questions, sometimes we pose the questions ourselves, I guess we can always kind of benefit from them by checking ourselves, by checking our books, whether the balance is there or not. Awesome, please go ahead. I see you raise your hand.
Oh, Assalamu alaikum. No, so I think to Sohail's point also, I mean, I agree with you also. You know, like, why do we have these questions? And I remember from last time we had a really extensive talk on the questions and how they are so beneficial for us. But I don't think we can speculate that even if Satan knows what the answer is, because I can't speak on, what the intention of the one with the question is, but these questions do come up. And I think I kind of like what Berkan is saying, that it provides us the opportunity to challenge, hey, this wrong idea is coming. Let me see if this is true or not. Let me validate that. Right. So even if these kind of suggestions that, hey, can things be results of chance, or these are minor matters, or repetition is like really unnecessary. So then I can verify that. And I say, hey, and then I can counter that particular question and say, no, I had this thought in me, but now based on my needs, how I realize this, that's not correct. I do need repetition. I don't think things are out of chance. So that's how at least I took it, just to add on to you guys' conversation.
Before Surya, you take the lead, just one thing. I guess one reason I think what Suhail said as a recap of the last week discussion is important. I think we should know, regardless whether these questions will take us to a better place or not, whether they are good opportunities to check ourselves. This is one aspect, definitely. This is what just I said, reiterating what Farah's saying, not my original ideas, but I think this is true, yes. But as Suhail also was saying, that I guess before even approaching any question, we should know what we are doing. We should know at least how we perceive the intention of the question, or what is the reason that I pose this question. What the reason this question is asked to me, or what I'm trying to achieve with this question. I guess these, the meta questions about the questions, they should be asked. This is what I agree, with Suhail was saying. Because at least for myself, when I look at myself, sometimes I ask questions just because, I'm supposed to ask questions. It's the trend of the era, just asking questions, challenging everything. And, sometimes I raise some questions, I pose some questions, and when I ask, what's the reason I'm asking this question? Is it something I really care about? Is it something I really, need an answer? Or is it just, I heard from a documentary that there was one guy, challenging something, and I'm just repeating him or her just because this is the new trend. You should challenge everything, especially if you are in academia. You can't have any firm conviction of anything. You have to challenge whenever you reach a conviction. You have to try to destroy it. If it stays, it's something good. Otherwise, you get rid of it and so on. So anyway, you may agree or not, but the only thing I'm saying is, I guess we should know what we are doing. And we should always ask ourselves, is it something I really want? Is it something I really care? Do I really think it will help me? Or is it just, there's a question and I take it as an intellectual activity to try to answer it?
So when you are going through the process, you are saying that the intention should be for one to seek the truth. When you are going through the process, if one should ask himself or herself if you are pursuing the truth or looking for the truth. If the questioning doesn't serve to that purpose, then it is meaningless.
At least, like, yes, personally, I take it as, if it's not posed, at least for me, like, when I have this question, if I'm really worried about the answers, yes, I will definitely try to find the answer.
So that's as far as your intention goes, like, or your interaction goes with the question, because since I wasn't in the discussion last week, so I'm not really sure what was discussed. So maybe like this is going to be repetition.
Which is always good.
So like what does the statement represents? It represents the non-existence, right? Like it Satan comes up with an alternative that has no external reality, or there is no truth in it, whatever he comes up with, as an opposition to the truth. So no matter what, whatever the questions, let's say the satanic questions comes to our world, since Satan represents the non-existence, whatever the questions comes to our world in that sense is going to be, by definition, is going to be, how should I say this? It will have something from falsehood, or it will have something that has no external reality, or there is no truth in it. So that one should investigate and seek the truth as a result of that questioning, so understand the truth, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it is inevitable for the process, for learning process.
And as Asim was saying, for instance, it is still your responsibility to find out which part is falsehood, which part is seeking for the answer or truth. It is still your responsibility. Like, if you are challenged, you are challenged. Like, you have to accept that.
Yeah, and so like the questions are going to be there no matter what, because it is an integral part of the process. But I think this is what Suhail's point is. Like, I'm just rephrasing to make sure that I understood you guys right. So Suhail's point is, if you are taking those questions and just let's say making questions out of it just to like busy yourself or entertain yourself, that's where also the fallacy is. That shouldn't be the purpose, but instead one should be like, it should aid someone or help someone to seek the truth, or to see if there is any sort of truth in the question itself. Even is that the discussion? Like it?
As far as I understand, yes. So, would you like to say something still?
Well, no, you guys said most of what I had was thinking about. I would just just add on to this. I think, as you said, it's what is the premise of why you're asking a question? As Osman said, it's where are you trying to go? As you said, in the modern world, it's the question's really not asked for to arrive at something. It's asked for the question's sake, and it's we mentioned last week. It's skepticism becomes what you believe in. That becomes your object of worship. You don't care about certainty. That's not something you're after, because you don't believe in any sort of truth. You don't believe in any sort of existent truth at all. There is no such thing. It's what you understand from the world is that things could be, but no one can ever be certain about those things. And I think, as Asim said, is yes, you can take the questions and answer them as Nursi's doing, but I think that reflects more on Nursi than it does really the questioner, in that Nursi he himself, no matter if an obstinate atheist or Satan asks him the question, the way he writes, they're always asking him these questions, but he always is in need of trying to find an answer that fits within his worldview. most people, I think, today are not either concerned with it or they've never thought about it in that way. So if I go and ask somebody a question of this nature, if I asked myself, let's say from 10 years ago, 15 years ago, this question, I would have been shaken. Maybe I would have said, okay, this question is ridiculous. I don't want to answer it. But that's where I would have left it. And then you could ask, what purpose did the question serve? Maybe you can say what I believed in was based on, false premises to begin with. But, I could never have taken this question to my, let's say, grandparents, because for them, this wouldn't have meant anything. And it really wasn't appropriate for them. So it really depends on who's being asked the question. And what you see today is, as Birkan was saying, if you don't have any sort of interest, not only in recognizing that there must be a truth out there, but then trying to ascertain what that may be, even if the way you get there is long and narrow, tortuous and curves one way or another, at least you're trying to get there. And that's what Nursi is trying to do. But, at least in my opinion, I don't think most people are able to do that. And I think that's where the danger is.
I guess we can continue with the first point. I assume everybody is kind of clear with the question. The questioner is complaining why there's all these repeated historical references in Quran, why insignificant events like slaughtering a cow or even wing of a fly, why all these insignificant things is mentioned in Quran. He gives some examples about the angels prostrating before Adam, and he says, while the book is as such, how do you claim that it's a guidance? How do you claim it's a full of wisdom? And just to give the right of the questioner, I guess when you take the book, the Quran, and start reading, this is what you encounter, right? That's what you face. You open up one page, just make a experiment, randomly open a page, the probability of reading a historical event is probably higher than 70%. I'll open another random page, probability of seeing a, let's say, insignificant event, quote unquote, is again maybe higher than 70% or whatever. But this is apparently the case. But the claim of the Quran and also claim of the author is that Quran is full of wisdom and is guidance. I guess I'm highlighting what I'm saying right now. This is very important. It is guidance for us now, today, like in our condition. So, somebody will come and tell you stories about the Romans, and then will claim that I'm guiding you in your workplace. There's something shaky there, not shaky, but there's something
Fishy.
Sorry?
Something fishy.
Something, anyway, it's like a thing doesn't fit. Right? How do you explain? So, again, I think the question is at least interesting, exciting. And let's see how Nursi approached this question. And please do not take it this is my personal suggestion. Do not take it as he's trying to show the questioner, the Satan, that he was wrong. He's not trying to prove something. Instead, he's taking the opportunity to, let's say, review his worldview, reflect upon what he thinks about Quran. He's asking maybe internally, is this so? Like, what is Quran? Let's answer like, what is Quran, and then see whether all these historical events and so on really fit in this picture or not. And by doing so, actually, he's teaching us how we should approach the Quran, how we should read the Quran. So I guess this is, at least to me, a very novel approach to a question. This is very helpful, useful, and inshallah we will benefit. And one key point, as I said the previous weeks, like I guess we should try to listen to author and try to see what he will tell us, instead of bringing our previous judgments about the Quran or Satan or whatever. Let's see what new he's teaching us. And the first point, in the all-wise Quran are numerous minor events behind which are concealed universal principles. In the all-wise Quran are numerous minor events behind which are concealed universal principles, and which are shown as the tips of general laws. For example, he taught Adam the names of them. He taught Adam the names, all of them. This is the teaching of the names, which was a miracle of Adam before the angels because of his ability to be God's vicegerent on earth, and was a minor event. But it forms the tip of a universal principle, which is as follows. It was the teaching due to man's comprehensive disposition of countless sciences and numerous all-embracing branches of knowledge about the universe, and extensive learning about the Creator's attributes and qualities, which afforded men superiority over not only the angels, but also the heavens and earth and mountains in the question of bearing of the supreme trust. So this is yours now. Go ahead, please.
I have a quick question. Like, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but in the question, like, the minor event was like slaughtering a cow. And then later on, he was questioning the story of Adam. He was saying this was like an unseen. And then Nursi, he goes in and says, the minor event is Adam learning the names. Like, and then he repeats it many times, like, is his ability to be God's vicegerent on earth, and was a minor event. He constantly calls this a minor event. But to me, I feel like, how is it a minor event when he's saying that God is teaching Adam his names? Like, why does he keep calling that a minor event? Like, that's not even part of the question.
Anyone?
I think this is minor event, meaning that it is as if you read it like a specific person's life event. Once upon a time, somebody had this conversation with God and angels. So it's very specific. If you take it as a historical event, it's very specific. So it's minor in that sense. Yet he is not reading into this event saying that it is so much generalizable. This is why it is being mentioned, although it's a minor event. Minor in the sense that it is one person's encounter.
Seemingly, like it pertains to a single individual in a certain time frame.
Suhail says something similar to what you said, Osman. He says particular. So the way I understand, like when he says minor, he means something which is, let's say, not applicable to you. You don't even care. It's about someone else. Maybe it's about the past time. So just to make a contrast, for instance, if somebody comes and tells me all humans have such and such, or all humans have been taught by God that, when they were child, something and so on. I wouldn't take it as minor because it also pertains to me, it's also about me. And if somebody comes and tells me, Birkan, do you know what? You will have X and Y, and I wouldn't. Yes, it is a particular to me, but I wouldn't complain that it's particular.
Something that it attracted my attention when Abdurrahman was referring to the question. Also, the event of prostrating before Adam, it occurred in the realm of unseen and cannot be understood rationally. So that's what he says in the question, but in the answer, when Nursi talks about it, he talks about it in a completely different context.
Why?
I think the why is in the writing itself.
Meanwhile, Suhail wants to say something. If you are not ready, we can.
I know, we should study see why. So.
No, when I say why, I meant like, why do you think it's a different context?
Because one is referring to in the question, it points out to the fact that the conversation took place in an unseen realm. But when he talks about the actual verse, he talks about the verse in the realm of Alem-i Shahadat. What was it?
Seen world?
Manifest world. He talks about the meaning of the verse in the manifest world.
Okay, I see. Suhail, would you like to go and talk?
I may be mistaken, but what I understood from that was, in the question, he's asking, he's questioning the rationality or even the necessity of mentioning prostrating before Adam, because he's saying that, as was pointed out earlier, he's making it a particular historical, maybe not historical is the right word, but a particular event. And how can you understand what it means rationally if it's particular? It's in a sense beyond reason. I mean, you can't reason the event itself because it's particular to Adam. Whereas I think Nursi is saying, at least if I understand your question, he's saying that this verse can be understood within human reason, because even if it is a particular event, this event is also manifest within this world. It can be seen, because as Birkhan was saying, or as he'll show, it forms the tip of a universal principle. So it can be understood rationally. And I think that's what Nursi's point is, if I understood it correctly.
Any other comments or questions?
I'm just going to repeat the exact same thing. In the question, it refers to the realm of unseen. And in the answer, I'm not going to say rationality or in the rational way. I'm just going to say that Nursi tries to understand the verse in the realm of the manifest world through all the human experiences. Not just necessarily as like rationality or anything like that. He tries to understand the meaning of the verse in a way that it involves all the human experiences.
He talks about the sciences, accumulated knowledge, and so on. So the learning process of man, he says, right? So I guess the way I understand what you're saying is the claim is that the verse he taught Adam the names, all of them, is about something in the unseen. But instead, Nursi is saying that, so this is my interpretation now. I changed my mind instead of repeating what you said. So instead, Nursi says that, there is something about the human beings living in this world, including you, that you are not even aware. And the verse actually is trying to teach you that. So the verse is trying to teach you something about yourself. The verse is not even talking about, somebody lived years ago, thousands of years ago. I don't know, maybe millions, billions.
Maybe it does talk about that too, but like his focus is not there. His focus is like, I am reading the verse here and now. So how that like particular event really relates to me in a way that I can understand all the rest of the stuff what he has said so far in the rest of the paragraphs, so that I can relate to it like same way.
And I guess once you said that how it relates to me myself, I guess the only way a particular event relates to you as well is through finding that there's a universal principle behind that. And because you're going to make an, let's say, not guess, but it will serve for understanding yourself, somebody else's experience. So there must be something universal there so that it will apply to me as well.
To the universe.
Yeah, and this is what I understand from general laws. Like it's a general law in a sense that it relates to you as well. It is significant for you as well. Not only you, actually, it is also significant for your mother as well. So
everyone.
If there's something about your mother that you cannot understand, like why she's acting this way, read Quran, read this verse, at least this is the claim, right? And you will understand from this verse, he taught Adam the names, all of them, why your mother is acting this way. So this is what I understand from general laws or universal principles. I don't know, any other points about these general laws? Suhail, go ahead, please.
Maybe I understood. I mean, it's interesting what you say. I never thought about it that way. But I also, at least from last week, kind of took, and I don't know if it's Norsi's intention, but universal principle to be distinct from general law in that you have a particularity within, this world. There's a particular thing or event or occurrence, and you can make it generalizable, or it has a universal aspect to it, which would make it a universal principle. But as he says, it's a tip of a general law, or the tips of general laws. And at least my understanding from general laws was that the law of which everything refers to him or to something beyond the universe. So in the verse, I took it to be he taught refers to the general law in that everything is in reference to he taught. And in a sense, the names being a universal principle and specific to Adam being a particularity. Now, that's how I understood it, but it's just was my takeaway. But I don't know if Norsi's intention was to make a distinction between them.
Well, that's a valid question. I guess if there's anyone who can answer the distinction between the universal principles and general laws. Before answering this question, let's keep it in our minds. There's a question from Mohammed Saeed. He says, I'm sorry, but I'm lost at this point. Which point is being discussed now? How come teaching of the names to Adam is considered as minor event in the text? Is this the main question now? Thanks. So because
That was after
we love Muhammad and we don't want him to be lost, let's try to relocate ourselves. So the way I understand Muhammad, why it is being called as a minor event, because at least the way the question is posed by the Satan, he says, this is something happened to Adam. I didn't even see it. I haven't seen it. You're just telling me about someone who I don't know, who I never met, and you're telling me what happened to him. So what? It might be a significant event in his life, like a God talked to him or taught him some names. But how this is important to me, like how can I benefit from it? So this is something particular to him. This is something minor, and we can also never verify.
It is an event that took place so long ago that is very so distant from me that has no relevance to me.
Yes,
I think that's what I understand from being minute or particular or insignificant.
Just make things more clear. A contrast, for instance, would be read a biology book, textbook, and it will teach you about how your the digestive system works, which is important because then you can decide what to eat, what not to eat, how to stay healthy, which is good for everyone. I want to be healthy. So compared to a biology textbook, like how do you expect me believe that Quran talking about some people I haven't met and what happened in their lives would be a guidance to me. So this is the way I understand the question. And Fariha says, so the general principles, when I apply it to myself, becomes particular to me, hence particulars are for the recipients. I guess this is more about maybe Suhail's question or the part that we discussed. She says, now I'm thinking, what would be an example of a general principle?
So, but why would there be a difference between general laws or universal principle? How are they different?
This is Suhail takes, and usually when somebody see a nuance difference between things, I say, oh yeah, okay, this is good. He or she sees something I can.
I mean, if there is a subtlety, I don't know, but to me, they kind of mean the same thing.
So I guess we can now continue with what Suhail said, and in light of Faria's question, we can continue with the general laws and the universal principle. If there are no other concerns or questions or disagreement with how the teaching of names are particular or minor. Okay, since no one talking. So any ideas about these general laws and universal principles? Awesome, go ahead, please.
Thank you. No, so Osman was saying that he thinks it's the same thing, universal in general. So, like how this first point is presenting, that there are some particular events, but then they are concealing something which is a more broader picture or universal principle to it. And these events are shown, basically they are the tip of the general laws. From that I understand that this is just like an example or sample, kind of like a highlight of something, and you have to go beyond to discover what that universal principle is, how it applies to everything. So how it's related in terms of, look, the statement is he taught Adam the names. Now, what is behind this is a particular event. Now, what is the universal part of it, and what forms the general law of it? And then he highlights very brightly, the author, I mean, when he says, the teaching of the names is what is, and he said that's a miracle of Adam before the angels, which I thought was pretty interesting. That now he's going that what that minor event actually is representing in terms of the general principle. Like normally if I read, he taught Adam the names, I don't pay attention to the he taught part. And now here he says, look at this, it's in quotes, teaching of the names, It's not just teaching how to bake a cake or how to cook this, but it's teaching of the names, which is even the angels are like amazed at it. That is a miracle for them that Adam, or a human being, has this ability or potentiality of, where he knows knows all the names. Right? So that's part of the universal part that every individual can has this thing. And then this teaching should not be taken for, granted that, it's an amazing kind of miracle that the angels also just prostrated because of this fact that, this individual human being knows how to recognize who the Lord is and qualify him with different attributes and different names and qualities. It is from the angel's point of view, I'm saying, why the author says that, it is a brilliant, amazing thing. And that's what that universal tip is. But now that he says that is the tip of a universal principle, right? But then you have to go further in terms of what this tip means. Like, what does it mean to be taught all the names? And that's what how it goes and forms the general laws, where you get to know in more detail what that means, the teaching of the names. That's how I understood it.
So I'm thinking, like what I learned from here, from the text, is, as it defines me like a methodology. Again, as I said before, like when I read Quran, that there's always a chance for me, maybe this is the only reason, this should be the only reason, there is always a chance for me to get something out of it about myself. Rather than reading it as learning about the Islamic history, I can take something out of it about myself. It would answer an amazement that I have. And so, okay, this is the methodology. So how I can approach this verse? Just like Norsi did, but I guess Osman has a question for.
Not question, but just a simple comment. So the claim is Quran speaks to everyone equally, right? And it speaks to even like the most unlearned man can get something out of the Quran. So it is addressing all mankind at every level. That is the claim. And that's also the part of the reason why the question is asked, like, if it is as such, how is that like a insignificant event is mentioned in the Quran, right? That is the context of the discussion. So here, like, what I understand is even the event may seem like insignificant or very distant from you, but every single case study, let's say, that is mentioned in the Quran has something for every single individual. And I think that's what that universal principle or general law refers to. So every single individual can take something out of that event that is mentioned, and you can draw a law or a principle for yourself out of that event. So you should be reading the verse as such with that kind of mindset. So I don't really know, I don't know if you need to get into the semantics so much, but overall that's what the idea is as far as I understand.
Yeah.
So then the question is, okay, he taught Adam the names, all of them. So how do I understand that this verse? How do I draw universal principles that will be applicable to me, to Abdurrahman, and to you at the same time. And also, it is not going to refer to a realm that I have no reach, that I will not be able to verify the truthfulness of the meaning. So that is the question.
And I guess that's the reason Nursi said at the end of the next paragraph, he says, so the minor event in the unseen of the angels prostrating before Adam and Satan not prostrating is the tip of a broad and universal observed principle.
Right, you observe.
It's a tip of a broad and universal observed principle. This hint at extensive truth, which is as follows, he says. So he said, whatever is said there, it is first for broad. Right? It's not only about the Adam. It's universal, meaning like it can be applied to you at any time, in any condition, and it's observed. Whatever is mentioned there, like you observe it all the time in your life. And it says, like it's talking about teaching. So there's a teacher, there's a student, and there's such a relationship between the two. Just like, the servant, the Lord, it defines this relationship, right, in the verse. I guess it gives you a worldview in which you do not just stumble upon knowledge on books or through professors, your friends, and so on, but you are being taught. I guess it changes everything a lot. Like in the one worldview, in which I most of the time live, I'm in darkness. There are all these things around me. I just hit them accidentally. Sometimes it hurts. Sometimes it's, they give me a pleasure. But I try to understand, grasp it. Because I'm so weak, I collaborate with others. We put some efforts, money, to open a university or a school. What they call the schools they open here, institution. No.
Charter?
Yeah, charter. It's charter schools. Why? Because, we have to learn these things, so we have to help each other. Otherwise, we are doomed. Like we're trying to survive in this violent environment. We have to rule the nature. We have to learn the rules of the nature so that we can conquer and then control, manipulate. Like these things sounds really, out of sci-fi or out of novels. I don't know, like imagination. But these are the definitions you will find in textbooks. Like we learn the rules of the nature so that we can control them, manipulate the nature. We have to survive.
So there is no God teaching you anything there.
Yeah.
You are learning yourself.
Yes.
What are you learning? Is that the names that it refers here?
You don't even know what to learn. You don't even know how to learn, right? You have to discover all this yourself. You have to try all these different methods to learn. And then some of them will fail, some of them will succeed.
So then the question is, like, if that is the case, that's your experience, then the question is, when you read this verse, does it contradict with your own experience?
It's not like a contradiction, but it's more like, shakes you and say that, wake up. Like, what are you doing? Like, if you really want to live in such a world that you're trying to conquer, you're trying to control, manipulate, so that you can survive, good luck. Like, among all these infinitely many variables, good luck if you can do anything. Like, without crushing under them. But he says, it's not true. The truth is you are being taught. So I guess there's a big difference between the two. If you like, if we use contradiction as you said, there's a big contradiction between the two. But one is.
But like in
living.
reality, like let's just like be more practical. As soon as we are born, we start like interacting with the rest of the beings around us, and we are really learning through our own trial and errors and experiences, and we are learning from the people around us. So for example, like that plant over there, if let's say Alia was here, I would be the one teaching her, saying that this is a plant, right? So that's one name that I would be teaching her, right? See, is that really the like experience? Like if this is what the setup is, then what does this verse refer to, saying that like God is teaching the names to Adam?
I guess
If that's not the case, then what is it that I am experiencing? Or what does this verse really refer to? That is the question, and I think that's what he is going with, referring to the universe. Then he goes to the names of the Creator, I think, in the paragraph. The knowledge about the universe, extensive learning of the Creator's attributes. So, where is the relevance to us?
in your example, for instance, is a good example. Like going back to what Musa says, conceal universal principles and tips of these general laws. Like you teaching about the plant to Aliyah. In one reading, Aliyah can think that, you know what, I'm so lucky. I'm so lucky that I have a father like Osman. He teach me about the plant. Otherwise, I could have another being as my father and he wouldn't teach me anything. And nobody around me would teach me anything. I would be in complete darkness. I'm so happy that I'm so lucky that out of chance, just random occurrences, I have Osman who teaches me. Or another reading, she sees a general law there. And she says, just like Osman, my father, teaching me about the plant, I saw yesterday my friend's, I don't know the name, Barbara's father, he was also teaching Barbara something. Isn't it interesting? Like, all fathers teaching something. Or if not father and mother, there's a friend, I don't know. Sometimes children teach, parents to parents.
That's usually the case.
But she says, look, there's something strange there. There's a general law there. There's a universal principle there. Like we are not left alone. There are always something, somebody, some creature, or the plant may be teaching me something. But this being taught as a universal principle is always there. As soon as I'm born, your Aliyah continue contemplating. She says, like as soon as I was born, my mother started teaching me something. The first doctor, he taught me how to cry. Otherwise, probably I would be dead. And then my mother took me. He taught me how to, be suit, and then how to eat, whatever. And then my father took me. He taught me something else. But the people changing around me, she says, but there is something universal behind that I am being taught. And then she goes and reads this verse. She says, Alhamdulillah, she magically, learned Arabic as well. She says, Alhamdulillah, I was being taught by our Lord, just like He taught Adam all the names. Now, this is what I understand, how it relates to Aliyah.
We were Aliyah at some point in our life.
Yes. Any comments, questions? Yusuf is thinking, so probably there will be a question or comment soon, inshallah. Sohail, please go ahead.
It's that is a very human example. Last week we talked about, what is the nature of, knowing or learning, and, society presupposes that you have some sort of external acquisition of knowledge. So in the case of Alia, it would be, well, she's learning something from the external environment that she doesn't have to begin with. Whereas the Quran demonstrates that, no, it's already within you to know. You just need some sort of external trigger or spark to become aware of that, which demonstrates two very different conceptions of knowledge and knowing. And I think that, as you said earlier, it kind of plays into the idea of, this idea of who survival of the fittest, as you said. We go through life and we're always trying to learn something, in essence, to, really, if you think about it from a very crude, rudimentary perspective, it's to survive. And that's what, the modern thought would have you believe, is that, you learn something not for any other purpose other than to know it in order to survive. And that's how you go through life, and that's eventually you'll die, but in between, that is what you know, and that's how you learn. So it almost makes you question, what is even the purpose of having all of these qualities to know everything and anything? It makes them really redundant, not even redundant, of no benefit whatsoever, because in the end, your end is the same. Everybody's end is the same. Whereas, the Quran, shows that, having these names within you is, for a general principle. And really, if you take things back to its first principle, or the basic essence of it, it's to know him. And I think these are two different worldviews. This verse is in a way demonstrating.
Yeah, I totally agree. Right? The distinction between these worldviews, I find myself sometimes in one, sometimes in the another. Like from first hand, I can experience the difference between them. In one of them, you have to gather as much as knowledge to succeed, to survive. You have to swallow all the Wikipedia, right? And
half of it is junk.
Sorry?
Half of it is junk, not true.
Most of it, but anyway, like you have to do it to illuminate your life. And on the other one, it's like, I don't know, Birkan, you've been taught all these things, and you will be taught. So just be ready for it, that's all. And I guess when he says, like, he taught Adam the names, all of them, as Nurs is saying in the following paragraphs, he tells me about my potentialities, my senses, that I have this disposition in me to understand things, to use them, to benefit from them, or to make sense of them. I have this potentiality in me. I guess this is really important because, like, for instance, we see the manifestation of this fact in science. Like, let's say a quintessential scientist would say, and personally, I think like rightfully, would say there are things that we don't know how or why or whatever, but one day we will learn, she would say, right? I think this is really important, having such an, I'm not talking about, the attitude of a person, so she or he might be arrogant or whatever, I'm not interested with this, but this confidence give us the security that I'm not left alone in dark. It is possible that I don't see the light yet, but I know that, I have this potentiality for it. If I ask, it will be given to me. Again, this security is really important. It's something like, at least personally, I constantly need. I find myself in struggle all the time. And this verse tells me that you have potentiality to learn all the names. So meaning that you have a potentiality to make sense of every struggle you are in. Don't be worried. You are not alone. You are not left alone. I will not leave you in the darkness.
There, like, it seems like here, like, there are three things that, like, he refers as the names. But I'm just going to read the sentence, and there's a small count. But it forms the tip of a universal principle, which is as follows. It was the teaching due to man's comprehensive disposition. So that's one. Man's comprehensive disposition. I think that's one of the things that the names referring to. And the second one is countless signs and numerous all-embracing branches of knowledge about the universe. That is the second thing that the names refer to. So, like, it covered the man, it covered the universe, it covered everything in this creation. Because as far as you are concerned, it is the universe and your own experiences, right? And through that, an extensive learning about the creator attributes and qualities. So there are three, please correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like there are three things that Nursi thinks that what that verse refers to in terms of the names. So the things that you experience in your own self, in your own being, the things that you experience in the creation, and both of those are the attributes or the manifestations of the attributes of the Creator. So whatever you see in yourself, in your like a vast, comprehensive disposition, and whatever you experience in the universe or observe in the universe, is the manifestation of the attributes of the Creator. And that's what makes man so special or superior over the other beings, angels, is because of that comprehensive nature that you are created in a form that you are able to understand the qualities or the names that are manifested within you, and you are able to observe the names that is manifested in the universe, and through those experiences you are able to understand the creators, the attributes of the Creator himself. Being in that state, or being in that comprehensive state, places the man in a position that is he is superior over the heavens and the earth and the mountains and the angels. And this is what the Supreme Trust is, that you have that kind of capacity to know God with all his attributes, but at the same time, I think that's like he's going to talk about in the next paragraph, but at the same time, you also have this choice, let's say, that you would exploit that nature as well. And that's where I think the Satan comes into play. Like, maybe we can discuss it more when we get there. So like in a sense, like what Suhail was saying, that like you are already endowed with the names, you just need to explore that. I think I agree with that statement because it is within you, but it needs to be understood or explored under the light of the Quran, or the teaching of the Quran, what those names are and what is the purpose of those names.
Emin wants to say something. Emin, go ahead, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Just to continue on what Osman has pointed out about those three different aspects, what struck me the most is the phrase countless sciences, or more accurately, teaching of countless sciences. So we've so far talked about, in general, how we are endowed with certain qualities to fully or comprehensively understand our Creator or get to know Him. But I think the answer to the how question is through science. And science is knowledge, or not necessarily the modern contemporary way of understanding science, but science meaning generating wisdom, extracting knowledge, attaining new information, like for example in engineering or in medicine or in lots of different areas. Humans are, it's such a unique species. They are the only ones who can, I think the word recursively, quote unquote, create or generate new, unique thoughts. For example, I could make a sentence, say, I don't know, I have a pink elephant in my room. So for example, this sentence has never been uttered. I'm just obviously guessing here, and until 2018. And I'm just given an ability to generate that thought and sentence. So similarly, as an engineer, we are discovering or uncovering the mysteries of the universe. That's what humans are able to do, or that's the ability that given to human beings only. So every day we are discovering something new. Obviously, don't focus on the finance or economical aspects of the technology and hyper technology. I'm not talking about that. Just individually, as a human being, like for example, Bir Khan came up with a clever idea of hiding the cables through wireless microphone system for the retreat, and he concealed the ugly plastic or metal technological device into a more organic, like a brown box, to make it feel like it's a part of the furniture. So you see, nobody has ever done this. And these are all these different examples that I've given so far. I see them as under the umbrella of sciences. So what does that mean in the context of what we are discussing, in the context of vicegerency? It means that through this ability that I'm able to fully recognize and fully recognize my Creator by appreciating existence. So existence of new things, or existence of existing things. So that's actually very unique or new understanding for me. But I guess to wrap up, I find most important that through science, I, as a human being, am able to actually fully enable the human qualities given to me and get to know my Creator in its full sense. That's what I understood from teaching all the names and all these different adjectives used in the paragraph, like comprehensive, etc. So I just find that very interesting, and I wanted to share. So it's very important that I understand how exactly I can utilize these human qualities or experiences we've been discussing so far. And the way to do it is to focus on the fundamentally unique human capability that is creating. Obviously, I'm using in a modest sense. Creating means generating. Obviously, we're not creating out of nothingness, but with the given qualities and applying to apparent causes, whatever is given, whatever is surrounding me, just putting things together, that I'm able to generate a whole new thing. And that thing is a manifestation of my creator that's never been manifested up until the point that I requested for that thing to be manifested. So in the example of Birkan's beautiful box, that box is a lot of creators' names is manifested in that box. And some of those qualities and names have never been manifested in anywhere. Like, for example, in the context of retreat, make the audiences comfortable such that they're not put off by all the wires and technology, so they can get interactively and authentically join the discussion. He came up with this idea with the human qualities given to him. And through the application of this core human quality, he asked his creator to manifest a whole brand new set of names, manifested in the form of wireless microphone hider box. So I hope I'm clear. If not, please let me know.
I mean, even if you intend to continue, I have to interrupt, because people now believe that I pay you to promote the product. So thank you, but let's keep it a little low.
Are you together in the business, I mean?
Yes, of course. Why do you think I am giving examples from Birkan?
Jazakallah khair. Suhail want to say something. Before that, I will ask people here, because we have some representative of the anti-science movement among us. So if they want to say something after what Emin said, please go ahead.
I'd like to ask Emin a question. So do you believe that new names are being discovered? For example, when we have a new wireless microphone box, or I don't know, let's say we went to the moon, you think that new names are being discovered? Because then wouldn't this put the people in the past in like an inherent disadvantage because they weren't open to those names? And shouldn't names be more something that even just the very low educated humans should be able to understand all the names as well? Or are they not taught all the names and like you learn more as you learn science maybe? Or because I'm thinking names as more abstract, more general, like, I don't know, knowledge, wisdom, love, all these kinds of names that you can see. Like in this microphone box, you see some wisdom and it's definitely there, but then other things you can see wisdom as well. So
you don't really see much because you just see the box, you don't know what's in there, so you don't really see the wisdom.
Let's change the example, please.
I think in all, I agree. It cannot be limited to a certain category of sciences. It's all in all of our experiences. We are actually seeing manifestations of the Creator, but with the human qualities given to us, we can actually ask for more. And not when I say more, I mean new names to manifest. You don't have to go to moon or work on the next generation sports car. It doesn't. Those are just basic examples. It could be as simple as finding a more efficient route to come visit Birkan's apartment. So when in the process of coming up with a more efficient path, every layman can do that. You are actually requesting a brand new names to manifest it. And this understanding is actually in line with the more fundamental understanding of Tawheed, like everything is the sign from the creator. So in this context, or in this sense, I'm not this human beings are asking to create more manifested names. That's not some separate exclusive activity. It's just a part of life. So everything. But through application of my human qualities, I'm able to develop a position or disposition in which I can learn to see from atom to all the way to the largest stars, or all the human experiences. I can begin to practically, actually, really, truly, not abstractly, see everything is manifested. Everything is being manifested by the creator of myself and the universe.
Jazakallah khair.
I have a comment.
Before that, Suhail wanted to say something. If it is like a short, go ahead.
Yeah, it's short. I mean, when I walked into the room, I saw the box. I didn't know it's a microphone. I thought like we can get a big diamond like necklace for Aisha. So I thought that was the manifestation of the name of richness. But I was wrong.
So Suhail, it's your turn. Report. Just wasting our time. It looked more like a donation box.
Well, my comment wasn't entirely related to what Amin said, though. I will ask him a question, one, and then might comment. One, the question is, is there a new name being manifested, or is there a different manifestation of a name being manifested? That's one question I have. And in a sense, I guess that kind of goes along with what divine oneness is that even in an atom, all names are manifested, just to a different degree according to the capacity of that thing that exists. Which, in a sense, I guess leads me to comment about what Osman said earlier. I was reading, he mentions the Supreme Trust, and in another word he goes into what the Supreme Trust is in more detail, but superiority over not only the angels, but also the heavens, earth, and mountains. I was thinking about this. Really, if you think about it, most things in the world, they're restricted to their own self, in that, even what Amin was saying, a rock or a mountain is restricted to its own state. It can't go beyond being a mountain or comprehending things beyond its own being, beyond being a mountain. It can't comprehend humanity, can't comprehend water, can't comprehend a galaxy a billion light years away. It can't comprehend the trees that grow upon it. It is what it is, just as anything else in the universe. And in a sense, that sort of reflects if you understand angels to be the meaningful aspect of a thing, the meaning of a mountain is regarding the mountain and not regarding a human being, in a sense. Whereas the human being is, as Osman was saying, it's able to capacitate or comprehend all of those things. And it can go beyond just the self. It can go to other people. It can comprehend other individuals that you may or may not relate with, or you've never met before. You read about in a paper or read about in the news, and somehow you relate to that individual. Or you can comprehend or understand something that's so far away in a different, land or a different planet or a different galaxy. And in a sense, I think that's what gives man superiority over those things, is because of his comprehension, him knowing all of these names. But as Osman was saying, once you go beyond yourself, there's always a risk of exploitation, whether it's exploiting yourself and thus the qualities you have so that you become corrupted, which is, often seen by things like power, greed, lust, or you exploit other human beings, as is often the case, or you exploit the heavens, earth, and the mountains, which, is quite apparent today, utilizing those things for your own benefit at their own detriment, to their own expense, without caring about what happens to those, other creatures. And in a sense, exploiting the meaning or the angelic side of the universe. You can exploit what things mean for your own benefit. For example, you can take a resource from the world, Earth, and utilize it to acquire mass amounts of wealth and power, and use that to exert control over others. But that's in a sense exploiting what it means, because that's not what its purpose of existence is. And really you're using this, being taught the names, all of them, for, in a sense, a satanic reason. So it's, while very profound and important, and why it must be the supreme trust, because there's nothing greater than that, being able to comprehend the entire cosmos. It can also be used for great evil as well.
Just to thank you, Suhail. Just
Go ahead, please.
Sorry, because since there was a question, I didn't raise my hand. Just to briefly to attempt an answer attempt. I think it depends on two things. First, how we define divine names, and obviously that's a technical discussion I'm not going to get into, and I'm not capable of. I'm not able to actually get into details of it. And also the resolution of the boundaries of names that an individual is thinking. For example, as simple as generic as wisdom or wise. Wise is one name. And obviously a lot of different things can be considered under the umbrella of wise, even if it is as a brand new as okay, not the box, but a new book, for example, a book with lots of insights and new ideas and thoughts, etc. But if I increase my resolution, and instead of just saying wise, if I consider, let's say, I don't know, what would be one level below under wise, wise and efficient, for example. So if you consider that experience or that observation, or excuse me, that manifestation as a single name, then that would be brand new name. But if you consider that is not a name, it's just some other quality, then of course, like you rightfully pointed out, it might be just another version of the name or another manifestation of the same name. But regardless of the technicalities around the definition of names, from my point of view, when I say my point of view, I say in my humble opinion, what it matters is that, like you pointed out, humans' abilities go beyond a plant or animal, a cat or dog or mountain. So whatever that may be, it could be going to moon, could be just writing a book about hadith, it could be a book about a history. So don't get hung up on the technological marvel example. I mean, I understand that technology may not be regarded as high due to obvious reasons, but that's not the point here. The point is humans, given the humans' capability to generate new thoughts, generate new things. And every time I do that, obviously in the context of the Quran and these verses, I have to be, I have my response, my purpose is to use these experiences as a vehicle to get to recognize my Creator so I can attach myself to the eternity. So that's given, implicit in what I'm saying. But obviously without that foundation or guidance from the Quran, I would be exploiting my human qualities and start making empty claims and harming others. But that's just life in general. So there's nothing unique about generating new thoughts. Every day we are generating new thoughts. As simple as thinking about the breakfast and cracking the egg in a completely brand new way. That is the moment you ask your Creator to manifest something new for you. And that is the moment that I get to experience a whole new creation through which I recognize my creator. So in this context, it really excites me. To me, it's very exciting and very, I don't know, relaxing and comforting and convincing. Practically, like Abdurrahman was pointing out, names have always been abstract for me up until the point that I began to think about the science or ilm or knowledge, wisdom in connection with vicegerence of human being. Within this context, things begin to come together. But as you can see, as you can sense from my scattered thoughts, this is a new territory for me, but I just wanted to share my excitement.
I'm not sure about the learning a new name. That may be the case because you may learn something new about God that you didn't know before. That may be very well the case. But I think especially what I understood from your comments, I mean, when you yourself, let's say, invent something, and that is a manifestation of the name of, let's say, all-knowing one, right? Through you in terms of some sort of invention. So there, I think, I'm not sure about the new name again, but I think it's just you get one step closer in terms of the certainty of understanding that he is all-knowing one. You just get one step closer because it is not really external for you anymore. It is something that you discover about yourself, that a potentiality that you have, or that was not you have, that you were endowed with, and that is a concrete manifestation of it within the invention event. And as long as this is used to understand or link it to the creator himself in terms of the name of all-knowing one, I think that's just taking you one step above in terms of level of certainty that you have, or the conviction that you have about him being the all-knowing one.
Yeah, thank you. That's a very good reminder. I wasn't looking at from that particular perspective, but I wholeheartedly agree, and that's a good point to take heed.
So then you are saying kind of that with every experience you have, with every challenge you've been and with every solution you face, you reach a new level of conviction.
It is a new opportunity for you to learn something, a new name, or reach a different level of the name that you have already known before.
So we have
something important. I think, for example, again here, the Nursi talked about the man's disposition, comprehensive disposition, and talked about the sciences in the creation. If we just leave the names there, I don't think you will have the full picture. It must be linked, definitely linked to the attributes of the creator, so will fulfill the purpose being on the earth as a vicegerent, which is really man's on earth. The purpose of man's on earth is to get to know the creator. So I think that verse also should be kind of linked to that main mission and understood within that context.
Thank you. We have 15 minutes. I'm planning to read the last paragraph of the first point, unless there's an objection there. Okay. Through mentioning the angels' obedience and submission before the person of Adam, and Satan's pride and refusal, Quran makes understood that most of the physical beings in the universe and their representatives and appointed beings are subjugated to men. Most of the physical beings in the universe and their representatives and appointed beings are subjugated to men, and that men's senses are predisposed and amenable to benefiting from all of them. Man's senses are predisposed and amenable to benefiting from all of them, and pointing out what a fearsome enemy and serious obstacle in the path of man's progress are evil matter and its representatives and evil inhabitants, which corrupt man's nature and drive him down wrong paths. Quran of miraculous exposition, while speaking of a minor matter with Adam, peace be upon him, converses in elevated fashion with the whole universe and all mankind. So there's one point which attracted my attention. It says all physical beings, their representatives and beings, are subjugated to men, yes, but even before that, portray a different universe than we used to. All physical beings, I'm okay, right? At that point, yes. But they're physical beings. There's a beautiful box in front of me. But then he says they're representatives and appointed beings. What does it mean, they're representatives, appointed beings? And then, like, beside their existence, they are also subjugated to men. And on top of this, things get even more interesting. Like, it's not just saying, there are these mysterious representative or appointed beings in these physical objects. Your senses are predisposed to benefit from them as well. Physical beings, yes, you are predisposed to benefit from them, but also it says all of them. Right? I don't know if he's referring to all physical beings, but since he's listing all others as well, I'm inclined to understand all of them, meaning all these representatives and appointed beings. So I also have this potentiality to benefit from these appointed beings. So this is a spooky portrayal of the universe, I guess. Or does it have to be? That's the question. There's one part I want to drive attention. So anyone courageous enough to make some comments on this point in 10 minutes? Go ahead, Suhail. Braveheart.
Well, I think at least what I was mentioning earlier, I think at least that's what I think he's alluding to, in that, as you said, physical things are apparent and their non-physical representatives and appointed beings are subjugated to man, in that these non-physical representatives are what gives those physical things meaning. The angelic substance of a thing, its angelic aspect. So in a sense, it's quite, miraculous when you think about it, in that I can comprehend anything, let alone, in Azim's example with his daughter, Alia, comprehending a plant. I mean, think about it, just a child comprehending something that's beyond its own being is, in a sense, miraculous. I mean, reductionist science would tell you that, really, if you think about it, that doesn't even make any sense, because both are lumps of matter, cold, dense, hard matter. And yet, the Quran demonstrates that, no, that's not the case, because of the fact that you can understand it, that you can recognize a certain manifestation of a name within that thing. Really, in a sense, meaning is submitting to you. The angelic side of a thing is obeying and submitting to your need to understand and to comprehend. It, in a sense, recognizes the names within you and corresponds to those names. It meets them equally. So something is beautiful, I can understand its beauty. It doesn't deny me that sort of experience. And whereas I could also take the opposite path and exploit those things and say, well, no, that plant that she was looking at, it exists for its own sake. It doesn't mean anything. Its only meaning is that it exists, and that's it, for its own sake, and that's it. It's going to live and it's going to die, and just like everything else, and there is no meaning, and it has no fundamental qualities that I can appreciate, because if you take something to its logical end, that's what it really means. And in a sense, that's sort of the evil indwelling spirit within, that's potentially within, something, or within man, to corrupt him, to corrupt his nature, to take him away from the fact that he taught Adam all the names. That really is the crux of the issue.
We still have like 7 or 8 minutes, maybe.
Just some reverse engineering. When the names refer to the man's comprehensive nature, his position, do you think it only refers to the physical body, or it also refers to something beyond the body itself? So what is that in man? What is it that has that kind of comprehensive disposition? I think if we can kind of answer that question for ourselves first, maybe that will help us to understand for that plant or for that box what it really means for a representative or an angel. Did it say angel? Physical beings, appointed beings. Actually, in the previous mentioning angels, obedience, and linking that with the representatives. So maybe we can answer the same question for the plant. Is it really just the physical beings there? Or as Phil was saying, for example, you see some beauty there, right? Is that beauty just with the physical being, or there is something beyond the physical being that is in a way as representative of the beauty, or like a mirror of that beauty, and how that corresponds to your own disposition or nature, whatever it is that is within you?
I guess it's question, at least to myself, is when I see things, when I use things, for instance, do I feel as I am being conversed? I am a part of the conversation. Today I was walking with a friend inside the campus, and we are so blessed, having all these trees around us. These dying trees, the colors they have, it's amazing. I never seen such a beauty before.
Why does the death have to be so beautiful?
Yeah. And as you walk among them, it is really hard to not hearing the conversation. It quickly goes beyond the colors. It quickly goes beyond the geometry or whatever you pick. You're just walking and jumping up and down out of joy. The feelings you have inside you, the experience you have, it's obvious that there is something alive there, and you are part of this conversation with this something alive. First of all, you don't feel any alone among them. You don't feel like you are being left alone. as you see how they cohere, how they, like all the arrangements, how they make sense. Just this one scene of colorful trees talking to you of wisdom. It's not about the colors anymore. It's about someone wise talking to you. So I really believe that, like, walking around these trees, it's really hard not to be part of the discussion, not to be part of a conversation with them. Communication, yes. I guess all you need to do to see these, whatever these representatives or appointed beings are, all you need to do is just, be honest to yourself. Like, you look at yourself and see what you are feeling, how you feel, what you experience there.
This is very relevant, so I just wanted to quickly ask it before we run out of time. I guess I was walking in the same campus with the same trees, and I was looking at them, and I thought they're so pretty and so colorful. They must be telling me something, but I couldn't hear anything. So how would I hear something as you heard it? How could it be more obvious to me?
You spend more time with him, like as you are walking in campus.
Do I have to walk with you?
I would give the answer, but we are out of time. No, seriously, I don't know. I don't know. I don't claim that I did something special there, or
you said
I
we had seen the
experienced
video,
something
right?
special. But even your question, they must be telling me something. Isn't that the part of the communication already? Like, sometimes, you walk around the people who speak, let's say, the Hindi or Urdu, okay? Make it more relevant to our community. They speak in Urdu and you don't understand, but you know that, they try to tell you something. Even, I guess, having this doubt or having this question, like, what are they telling me? It is already you, like, acknowledging that you know that there's something trying to talk with me. Like myself as well, like when I say communication, I don't mean, or I don't claim that, they said something and I understood and I replied, in the full sense, but at least I know that they somehow talk about the things that my wisdom would understand. And then they talk about something that my heart would understand. They said something that my eyes would cry. Right? They talking to me with all these different faculties. I hope this is not a joke, because I will read, it's a long sentence. My answer to Abdurrahman's question: remind yourself the purpose of your existence. He says that is being a vicegerent. So that was not a joke, right? So yeah, let's remind ourselves all the time the purpose of our existence. And Suhair, the mic is yours to make the closing remark, please.
Well, I don't know if it'll be closing, but the one thing I'll say to Abdurrahman is to go back to the child example. Osman's a father, and his daughter doesn't speak Turkish or English, but yet he's still able to communicate with Alia, even if she cries or is happy or smiles. So just because a tree doesn't speak my language, human speech, doesn't mean I can't communicate. These words are just a vehicle for communication, but they aren't the necessity. So a thing can communicate even if a human being can communicate even in his body language, their expressions, just like a tree can communicate in the qualities it manifests. There really is no difference.
سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. الفاتحة.